Okay, hopefully you guys can hear us today. Good morning, Monday motivation, and its special guest series. And I'm super excited. Many of you know Daniel McKee, and he's got a great team here that's very family oriented. And we were talking about a topic, and so we came up with extreme avoidance, and then, that is playing the long game. And I know you had some commentary about some things you've already done that might be helpful to someone else.
Yeah. So I got into real estate in August of 2021. And, that was sort of when everything was going crazy in the market. And
It's fantastic.
people actually say, like, wow, you really did get in real estate at a great time. But
Yeah.
really, what I found myself in is people already had their people. And I was brand new trying to create my people.
Right.
And so it wasn't like I just had people knocking down my door to come and, list their house or, to come and help them buy a house. And so I decided, like, hey, we got to get leads from somewhere. And so I actually did a little bit of online lead generation
Okay.
at the very beginning. And then, also tried to, like, really drill into my sphere. So some of those online leads, like, very initially, one of them became something like almost immediately, which is pretty unusual.
But also, it was very encouraging, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is working.
For sure.
Right?
Exactly. And then that was it, really. I mean,
Yeah.
there was maybe one more after that throughout the course of when we did that.
Yeah.
And so, so we really tried to drill into our sphere after that. And then sort of along the way, there's been different opportunities that have come up. And, we may have tried more online lead generation, or let's pay for this thing, or let's do this thing. And so I think the thing that I was sharing with you
Yeah.
is that throughout the course of my time in real estate and in building a team, it really is easy to see that shiny object and to go after it, instead of, well, let's just go back to what works and really do more of what works. And that's what Gary says in the Shift book, right? Like,
Right.
find what was working and then do more of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really easy, I think, in a shift to go back to those shiny objects, things that you might have done in the beginning or that you have tried before, and you might have had minimal success there, but it was sort of exciting because it was exotic, meaning it, sort of came out of left field and you weren't expecting it, and let's go replicate that. And the reality is that's a terrible idea. The best idea is always to just do more of what's always been working for you. And so that's sort of where we find ourselves now that we have enough experience under our belt, that we can say, okay, no, that didn't work. We thought it would, especially, there's so many videos of people online that are
Yeah.
like, testimonials, and just do this for this amount of time and give us this much money, and we're only going to take this split, or it's only a transaction fee, or whatever. And, the reality is, like, if you're going to do anything effectively, you have to commit to it.
Right.
And so if you're going to do a lead generation system effectively, like with online leads, whatever, like, you have to commit to that. And so, that's what I think, that's the basis of what we were talking about.
No, and I think too that because you're so bombarded with all of that, all the the YouTube channels, right? The people that are selling the thing, they've set up a system. They rocked at it because they did a commitment
That's
to
right.
it, right?
That's right.
They
That's
committed to it. They did really well with it, and now it's time to do this other stream of income around it.
Yeah.
And it looks really super easy.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think too, when we get into maybe gaps in business, sometimes we get discouraged around the thing we are doing because we're not getting that instant gratification. I mean, we're a fast food society, for heaven's sake, right? We want to go Chick-fil-A. We want to go boom, 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 easy. And one thing that you said to me that stood out was that going the path of what's worked and going back to that basics is not easy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not because it feels like, well, if I'm just doing more of what I've been doing, I'm going to get more of what I have.
Yeah.
But I think in real estate, it's that compounding effect. And I think in bold, sometimes they call it the Tasmanian devil effect, right? You start doing more of the things that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it creates this vortex that really just starts pulling things into your sphere and into your world, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like if we're, for example, if we're really drilling down on our sphere and we have a 36 touch plan in place, and part of that 36 touch plan is sending out a monthly mailer, making our quarterly phone calls, and hosting an event. We host an event every, like 3 times a year. We don't host a quarterly event, 3 times a year. So it's easy for that plan to sort of be in your brain, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we do a 36 touch. And then when you really take stock of like what your year has looked like, what those activities have looked like, it's like, well, did we really make all of our quarterly calls, right?
Okay.
And did we really like do the events to the highest standard that they could be? And were we really consistent about how we send out our monthly mailers? And, you know, like, it's fine to have it in your brain, but like, were we really consistent with how we conducted all of these activities that we had said we were going to conduct? And then that's sort of the drill down part, right?
Okay.
Not necessarily like we executed our plan to perfection. Like, now let's execute it to double perfection. Because if you're executing your plan to perfection with a 36 touch, if it's a good plan, you're probably not going to be looking for another shiny object anyways. And so
Right.
it's like, well, I did 25 deals last year just by going into my sphere. Okay, so that obviously worked because I did 25 deals.
Right.
I mean, we're just talking hypothetically.
Right.
And so how can we really invest even more heavily into that? Because I didn't close, hypothetically, this person didn't close 25 deals, you know, with Kazoo or Street Text or Red X or
Sounds like you know a lot about those
what
guys,
you know what I'm
right?
saying, all these things
Yeah.
that pop up on your deal. You
Yeah.
didn't close 25 deals with that.
Right.
But you did close 25 deals with your sphere. Or if you're an expired, you did close 25 deals calling expireds. Or you did close 25 deals going to open houses. Or you did whatever your thing was, that's how you did it. And so that's why it's effective. Like, well, let's do more of that, you know? And I think also, it's not to say that online lead generation or whatever whatever the thing is that interests you isn't a good idea, but it is that, like, you know, when you're building that stool, like you want each leg to be really strong.
Right. I like that.
And let's not go find another leg before we have, pulled the first leg off of the lathe, you know, if
Right.
we're really going into the woodworking metaphor here. But
Well, I like that because I've often heard that your business is like a stool and you're
Yeah.
going to have, your 3 or 4 lead sources that really, really give you the most return on your investment.
Yeah.
And I like that it wasn't enough for you to just say, oh, we implemented a 36 touch, because you could go in and click go on multiple things like that. But were you really thoughtful around it? Did you really check on how was that being delivered? And you had extreme ownership on all the pieces,
Yeah.
and you really wanted to fine tune each one of them, not just say
Yeah.
you did it on a checkbox.
right.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the 36 touch is probably the most, like, the unsung hero of real estate. I mean, really, I think there's a reason why. When did MREA come out? 2001. We're almost 25 years later, and like we're still talking about it.
Right, the plan,
like
right.
there's a lot of things that have changed in the real estate industry in the past 25 years, and the one that hasn't changed is the 36 touch. And so I think I think that is okay. So let's go back, right? When we had our initial conversation about today, like what piece of advice would I give to like new agents or people that sort of feel like they're stuck, that they're mired in inactivity, or they just feel like the market is something that's hard to that they're fighting against the market. Like
Yeah.
what advice would I give? And really, it is to implement a really quality 36 touch. It's to dive into your database. Like, don't go buy leads. Like, don't go spend money for things that are unproven. Start with the contacts in your phone. Like, plug them into Command or Brivity or
Whatever your
yeah,
CRM is,
whatever your
right?
follow-up boss, like whatever you've decided. If we're looking at finding ways to save money, like just go. You're in KW, so just go put them in Command, like, and then really create a good plan. We had a coach about a year and a half ago, and one thing that they did was really helped us. Create a really solid 36 touch, because if you had asked me beforehand, like, how do you get in touch with your database, I was like, we have a 36 touch. Well, we didn't have a 36 touch. Like, we had the idea that a 36 touch was a good idea to do, and so that's what we said that we did. So
Yeah.
like we had quarterly calls, and like maybe we did an event every 6-8 months, and we sent out Christmas cards. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It was
You
like,
did something. You were
yeah, we
doing
did
something.
something,
Yes.
but we didn't do like the whole thing. And doing the whole thing is really the thing that helped catapult us and launch us sort of into that next level of like generating gross commissionable income.
Yeah.
So the example is, last year we had a baby in January. My wife Abby had a baby. So our team is me and my wife Abby, and then we're the rainmakers, and then Abby's dad David is our buyer specialist. So he came on in May of last year. It's been great. In January we had our son, and he was born at 26 weeks and 5 days. And so we were in the hospital like a lot. So the
Right.
first 3 months of last year, 95 days, we were in the NICU. Our son was in the NICU. And then after that, like 3 to 4 months after that, we were always in appointments. I mean, like 3 to 4 days a week, we were taking him. And it's like a whole thing when, like, he had oxygen, and he, had a feeding apparatus, and there was all this stuff. So it was me and Abby together. Like, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, quick trip to the doctor. It was
Because you have two girls as well.
and we have two.
Yes.
Yeah, we have two girls. So it was a whole. I mean, it was a whole thing. And so really for those first 6-7 months of last year, like into July, we were not able to actively like prospect, right? It just wasn't a part of our world.
Right.
You have to make decisions in life, and we will always choose our family before we choose whatever comes next. And so the 36 touch, though, because we had taken time to write it down and set it up, it really is what did the heavy lift in our business last year.
It kept you in front of people without you having to be in front of people.
It kept us in front
Yeah.
of people without having to be in front of people.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that it's the unsung hero. I mean, we sing a lot, but I mean, I think people just, it feels so easy. It feels so simple. Like, it's like, no, I need to pay for something in order to create something. And it's like, well, actually, you don't.
Right.
If you'll just really drill down on it, then it really does end up doing the heavy lifting for you and for your business.
Well, and what I heard you say is a coach really talked to you about the pieces of that and really saying, yes, I truly do have a 36
Yeah,
touch.
that's right.
And I know 36 touch just means you are touching or getting in front of someone 36 times in a 12-month period. And a lot of that is digital, right, or print. And that quarterly call is actually part of that.
Yeah.
And what that does is it puts you as a face-to-face or voice-to-voice piece for when you talk to someone 36
right.
times a year. 4 times is actually verbal or in person.
Yeah.
Or text to text
Or a text.
or whatever
We count
that.
a text.
Right.
And it's, I mean, actually we talked to Leslie Peters with
Yeah.
the Peters Group. Well, I think they're called something else now. I mean, anyways, they're OPs and TLs down
Right.
in the Carolinas and Atlanta and stuff like that. So we had talked to her, and she was like, I actually count Facebook messages and text messages
Yeah, as long as they
36
talk
touch.
to
She
you.
said, don't tell
Yeah.
Gene Rivers.
Well, I mean, I think as long as you, as even Bold, or the boot camp Bold, acknowledged text messaging after a while, because it's that voice, it's a two-way conversation.
That's right.
So like I count that, but if I just send a text and nobody responds, that doesn't count.
Yeah, right.
But it's a
Right.
it's a conversation, however the conversation's had.
Yeah.
Because I think that ramps up the percentages of you actually getting referrals in business. If you leave that piece out, it's still good that you're doing the other, but that's really the magic button.
You have to.
Yeah.
And the other, Abby and I were talking about this. We had heard somebody say this, and then we were reflecting on it yesterday. The 36 touch does, I said this before, but I'll say it again. It does the heavy lift for you.
Yeah.
So if you're sending out 12 monthly mail, so our 36 touch consists of 12 monthly mailers, and also includes 3 items of value inside those mailers. So like we are getting ready to send out our trades and services guide. So it's a list of over 40, it's like 40 to 50 vendors that we have vetted personally. And just for anything for your home, arborists all the way to piano tuners to real estate attorneys to
Nice.
like whatever people are going to need. And we send that out, and then we send out like a magnet and a notepad, and then we do like a Christmas gift or something like that. Like those are our 3 items of value that we send out through the year. And then we do contact on birthdays, contact on home anniversaries. We want everybody to be signed up for our weekly email list. We do 4 quarterly phone calls. We have 3 events a year. We do 2 giveaways in the year. So our 36 touch ends up being like 108 touch or something, like by the time you you add it all up. But it does the heavy lift for you, so that when you do call people, you're not actually having to say like, "Hey, Susie, this is Daniel with McKee Homes Group. How are you doing? Do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell in the next 12 to 18 months?" No, what you do is you say, "Hey, Susie, this is Daniel. How are you?" "Oh, Daniel, we're doing so good. Oh, good. How are your kids?"
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, Jezebel, whatever her name is, just started and whatever. And oh, that's awesome. Are you guys enjoying your house?" "Yes, we are. Listen, we just got your thing in the mail. Thank you for sending that to us." "Oh, you're so welcome. And my cousin Bob is thinking about selling his house in a couple months." "Oh, well, first of all, what an honor that you would think of us whenever your cousin Bob told you that you were going to be moving that he was going to be moving. We would love to get in touch with him. Would you share your contact information and let us know if we have permission?" I mean, that's like the easiest like conversion ever.
Yeah.
Like they
I
are,
like that.
you're in their mind because you're sending them stuff, and they're a part of your world, your ecosystem, your real estate, everything that's going on. And then when you call them, they're automatically triggered,
Yeah.
to think about the thing that they wanted to tell you.
And you had just sent them something in the mail.
And
I
you
know.
had just sent them something in the mail.
Now, was that Leslie Peters as well? Like I heard, I listened to her speak, and I know they were really big on giving an item of value in the mail.
Yeah, she may have said something about that. I think the items of value, that's just straight MREA, right? Is 4 monthly mailers, and I think they used to do 4 items of value, like chip clips or magnets or whatever is what they...
Some kind of shelf life.
I have a J. Craig chip clip from back in the day.
I love that. I love that. Finding the thing that someone will use that has a lot of shelf life for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
just really and truly, when extreme avoidance. Do you ever get tempted when a shiny object rolls by? Okay.
Yes, and we have to remind ourselves what works.
Yeah.
We have to remind ourselves it's not worth it to go like chasing stuff down, right? Because I think part of building a successful business is creating something that can be replicatable, right? And so it's worth it to drill down into the things that work instead of getting so diversified that things are not able to be replicated.
Right,
And
right.
I think that there are ways to create other lead generation sources, as look at the MREA, and it's like, where are my leads coming from?
Right.
Marketing. Prospecting based marketing enhanced, right? And so, like, there's a way to create other lead generation sources, but I think those things, I think it's only responsible for those things to only come after you're confident in the way that you're running the biggest, most consistent part of your business.
Right.
Because it takes a while to get the wheel turning, right? To load people into the wheel. And that's why our business feels like this so much, because we get the wheel loaded and then we, go play. I'm not talking about like actual play. I'm talking about we go and try all the other things that we had
Right.
wanted to try, and then the wheel turns and everybody falls off, and then our wheel isn't filled up anymore.
Right.
And so I think it just takes reminding yourself, like, hey, let's keep the main thing the main thing. And I think it also comes from, just being responsible about like running a business and going back and looking at your numbers at the end of the year. So like we always go back and we look at, how many of these were sphere referrals? How many of these were people in our sphere? How many of these came from social media? How many of these came from like social media plus our sphere, right? So like there are people that are not in our 36 touch, but they come to us like they were part of our 36 touch because they're a part of our sphere, but we didn't have their information, and they also saw us on social media, right? So it's because we try and have a strong presence there, but that still is like part of like operating inside of our sphere instead of trying to do like something like having a separate strategy through social media. So I think it comes to that, and then that helps remind you, hey, here's how we keep the main thing, because the main thing says 37% of my business came from my sphere and other referrals, and
Right.
23% of my business came from visibility on social media, and another 17% came from calls from yard signs on listings, and like that. So it's like, oh wow, okay, so I need to take more listings because I'll get more calls from yard signs. I need to be more visible on social media. I need to make sure that I'm digging into our 36. Even if you tried, there goes my keys. Even if you tried some of those other lead generation
Yeah.
strategies, like, 5% of 2% of my business came from that $900 that I spent that I had to pay up front,
Yeah.
that didn't come from anywhere. So I have a very, I don't know how much time we have. Okay, we're okay.
We're good.
A couple years ago, I thought that I would start calling expireds, right? So it was like into the winter time, everybody gets nervous in the winter time because real estate is, no matter whether you want to say it or not, real estate is cyclical. It just is the way that it is, right? You can work until your thumbs are numb, and like it's still going to be a cyclical business, right? Just naturally, there's a natural way that it runs. So it was that time I was getting nervous. My phone wasn't ringing as
Yeah.
much. Like I was still also working into like being super consistent about my phone calls, and so I was like, I'm going to call expired. This has got to be so easy to call, expired listings, right? And so I, paid for a thing, bought a program,
Like a
it gives
dialer.
you,
Yeah.
it gives you all, actually, they came and advertised at Bold, I think is what it
Okay.
was called Land Voice, I think is what it was
Yeah.
called. And so, they gave you the information. So I took it and I start calling all these people. And like one day, I remember one day in particular, I like got 4 different people on the phone, and I set up like 4 different listing appointments. And I was like, this is literally the easiest thing I've ever done in my entire
Right.
life,
Score, cha-ching.
Yeah, right,
Right.
exactly. Well, all of them were duds except for one. Okay. And it turned into the literal hardest transaction of my entire life, and I spent so much time and so much effort that in team meeting on Thursday, Dexter said, like, you're going to have to buy a refrigerator, right? This is the one where I had to buy the refrigerator. The Friends episode, the one where he bought a refrigerator. And like, it was just, she was going to back out like a million different times. Like the day before closing, she's like, hey, are we still, I mean, I've been following up with her and she's like, hey, I don't think I'm going to do this. Like, I don't think I want to
Oh
close
my
anymore.
goodness.
And
Wow, that was a roller coaster.
it was
wasn't it?
I was just a mess, right? So
Yeah.
like 15 minutes before we're closing, I like show up to their house because the buyers were doing the final walkthrough, and like they are empty. They're emptying. The sellers are in the house, their family emptying the drawers of silverware into pillowcases
Okay.
to pack up. Like
Oh. Yeah.
15 minutes before we closed, it was a mess.
So the house had a lot of stuff in it still
So much stuff in it.
because she couldn't decide if she was going to close or not.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And I finally, I just, after that, I was like, you know what? This is not worth it to me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to drill into the things. You know, when I get to the end of the year, I'm like, yes, I did make money off of this, but like the percentage is small and the amount of stress and effort and, you know, angst and frustration and time and,
Yeah.
you know, all those things like
It just sounds like it sucked the joy out of
it
your
just
life.
it's not worth it wasn't
Yeah.
worth it, you
Yeah.
know. And so I think that, you know, you can listen to other people about, you know, how do you practice extreme avoidance. You can either listen to other people's stories and realize like, hey, I need to just do what works, or you can create your own stories.
You can,
yeah.
and they might have a refrigerator, and yes, I think a lot of people have bought refrigerators.
Yeah.
It's interesting though that was the one for
Yes,
you.
that was the one.
Yeah.
That was the one.
Well, I think we all get into that place of getting bored. We want it to be easy. We get into, oh, my pipeline is dry.
That's
I
right.
need to find the easy button. And we want it to work.
That's
we
right.
want it to be easy.
That's right.
And I like that you said you were really, really drilling down into relationships with your people.
Yeah.
And making sure that you're doing that at a high level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in regard to that, everything in real estate is the long game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think people talk about like 36 touch in relationships and, you know, like you're playing the long game. I think in real estate, everything is playing the long game. Like that should be our attitude in regard to every conversation that we have, every transaction that we do, every act of service, every item of value, every event, like whatever it is, it's really all about the long game because people want to do business with people that they know and love and trust.
Exactly.
And the more that you can really foster those things, do they know me? Do they love me? Do they trust me? Then the more business that you're going to have. And it's going to be sustainable business, right? Because you can hustle for sure, and that's going to make you money. But there are seasons and periods in your life where you cannot hustle. And whenever you create a foundation in your business that's built upon fostering that trust, that triangle of trust that we talk about, then that's when you're going to be really thankful that you're not having to hustle and business is still coming to you.
Exactly. So I know you were very grateful for the coach that you had
Yes.
to help you set that up because when the season came that you couldn't do the hustle, it totally blessed you and
Yeah.
it kept you going so you could focus on family.
That's right.
For
That's
sure.
right.
Well, I know you have some big goals, that millionaire real estate agent goal, that MREA
Yes.
goal. I love that you talked a lot about that today. And I appreciate you speaking into a lot. I think even whether you're new or you're seasoned, we all fall into the short game
Yeah.
when it comes to our business and just focusing back on that long game and avoiding the shiny objects and doing what we know works
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So you guys, drop any comments, give us some love. I hope you could hear us well because we tried to be loud and I think these were not on today. So I hope they were. And we look forward to seeing you for the cake auction this week. Deal Makers is tonight. And that's going to be a great event this evening in the training room, as well as we're going to Vegas on Thursday in Chattanooga. And Colt is on that committee, and he's got some fun stuff planned for you guys. So it's an action-packed week, and we want you to get out there and be productive.
Cool.